Hey everybody, it's Party Elite with another episode of Total Breakdown. Continuing from yesterday, we have another battle between the Beastmen of Scribble and the Dark Elves of John Ton. This was a part of the King's Cup Master of Warhammer tournament and is the third game in the best of 3, so make sure you watch the previous 2 days' battles first, as I will be making some references to them. Another reminder that John Ton is a YouTuber as well, and if you like what you see, you should definitely check him out by following the link in the description down below. We begin, as always, with talk of composition and deployment, and if you've seen the previous 2 battles, like I suggested, things are going to seem a little familiar. So let's start with the Beastmen. We've got a Beast Lord in charge atop the Chariot, and we also have a Bray Shaman of the Wild atop a Chariot as well, and once more, take a look at the spells brought to the field. Up front over here, we've got 3 units of Senegor with throwing axes, again hoping to push forward, do a little bit of harassment, some early damage, pull back into safety, get into the rears of these Dread Spears and the Hargoneth Executioners and just toss some axes into their backs, while the front line, if we can even call it that, consists of these 2 units of Bestigor Herd and these 2 units of Ungor Spearman Herd with shields. Now you'll see there are more Ungor Spearman Herd than usual on the field here, and that's mainly because last time around we saw 2 units of Cold One Knights, so these guys will be able to pin those guys in place, and back here we have the Minotaurs with great weapons, who are anti-large and armor-piercing, and they'll be able to follow through after these Ungor Spearman Herd have held those guys in place and do a lot of damage. Then back here we've got the Razorgore Chariot able to do a lot of hurt to infantry once the Bestigor Herd sort of pin them in place, drive in from the rear, just mow through them and get a lot of damage done and cause a great deal of morale damage as well, while you'll see over here we've got the Cygor already tossing a rock there, protected by these Ungor Spearman Herd with shields, while over here we've got this Ungor Spearman Herd not, protecting anything whatsoever, and surely a Cygor is not going to be summoned on that flank over there. Now, on the other side of the field, let's take a look at how the Dark Elves have prepared themselves. We have Malekith on the field once more, but this time he's on a cold one. Up front, we have 2 units of Dread Spears. To the left over here as well, a unit of Dread Spears. And back here, the Blackguard of Nagron. Now, these guys are all, of course, anti-large, so they'll be able to dive into any Minotaurs or Senegor with great weapons that try to charge through and pin them down and do a great deal of hurt. Back here as well, we have the Cold One Knights, and these guys are also anti-large and armor-piercing, so they can do a good deal of work as well. Once the Dread Spears or the Blackguard have pinned a unit down, they can come in with charges and do good work against Minotaurs with great weapons, but they'll have to be careful, or Senegor with their great weapons, and just eliminate those large units from the field. Then we have the 3 units of Hargoneth Executioners who will do quite well against Bestigor Herd, and then we have these Witch Elves as well, 2 units able to inflict the Madness of Cain and pin units down, prevent them from acting as they otherwise would. Finally, the Death Hag over here atop the altar, acting as a chariot, able to push through and get some nice rear and side charges, scare units off the field as well. Now, we paused for a second there, because we're about to see a nice hit from the Cygor right into the Hargoneth Executioners over here, doing the first bit of damage. Beastmen, again, drawing first blood, while all the way to the left flank of the Beastmen, as you can see, another Cygor already summoned just while I was discussing deployment and composition, able to get those rocks into the Dark Elves right away. So again, we've seen this before, we're seeing it again. The Beastmen come in with 2 Cygor on either end of the field, just tossing rocks, trying to get some damage in before lines are able to meet. So great work there, and the Senegor with their throwing axe as well, now pushing forward, hoping to do a little bit of damage early on, and you'll see those rocks again hitting either flank, hoping to spread the love, do a little bit of damage here, a little bit of damage there, and a couple of wasted axes here, in fact, as the Senegor with their throwing axes go around from this side of the trees and get some axes into the Dread Spears, but unfortunately most of those axes, or some of those axes, are probably hitting the trees and falling short of their intended target. But nonetheless, they push forward, try to get behind the enemy and fire into the backs of the Dread Spears, making their shields absolutely useless, or of course into the backs of these Witch Elves or the Hargoneth Executioners, who take a wonderful hit from the Cygor over there. Just a great shot doing a great deal of damage, dropping about a quarter of their health already. The other Cygor, meanwhile, was having a tough time getting a couple of rocks to land accurately, but this one gets a nice hit in there, again dropping these Hargoneth Executioners, while on that left side over there as well, the Hargoneth Executioners more or less giving up already. They're at half health, and they've barely moved maybe 30-40 feet on the field. Senegor with throwing axes as well, just splitting apart a little bit, throwing their axes at various targets, again hoping to spread that damage just to make sure the entirety of the front lines are weakened before they're able to meet the Beastmen front lines. And you'll see over here, Malekith is getting a little adventurous, pushing forward towards the Cygor, uses the Gaze of Malice to scare these Ungor Spearmen Herd a little bit, and you'll see the army pulling back over here, while off in the distance, the Senegor with throwing axes again, just doing a little bit of damage to these Dread Spears. Coming in from the side, coming in from the back is a good idea, but now you'll see they pull forward, and now they might be losing some of that damage to the shields that the Dreadspears have. So slightly better management there would have made a fairly big difference. But the Cygor, again, just falling back on the right over here alongside these Ungor Spearmen herd, and you'll see we've got the Minotaurs with their great weapons pushing in to intercept, if not chase after Malekith, because he is on a cold one. He is a large unit, so these guys will be able to make very quick work of him. Malekith turns around right away, pulls back, tries to get into some safety, and you'll see off in the distance, again, the Cygor getting another rock in there, doing a great deal of hurt this time to this unit of Hargoneth Executioners. And as that's happening, back up front over here, you'll see Malekith trying to pull back into some safety while the Cold One Knights here dive into the Minotaurs with their great weapons, try to get rid of these guys as quickly as possible. And we've got these Dread Spears coming in as well, chasing after the Minotaurs with the great weapons, while the Death Hag herself comes through and terrifies the Ungor Spearman herd over here, just mows them down, drives through them, and now these Minotaurs are going to be in a bit of a tight spot while the Cygor back here continues to throw rocks, tossing his rocks and hoping to, again, get some damage into these Hargoneth Executioners. Now, important thing to note, the Beastmen have done a good job of spreading that damage, and I mentioned it a couple times before, but take a look at the situation here. We've got this unit of Hargoneth Executioners at about a quarter health. This unit of Dread Spears, between the Senegor with their throwing axes and a charge from the chariot just moments ago, these Dread Spears are already giving up. They're at half health as well. Then over here, this unit of Hargoneth Executioners is at quarter health, and this unit of Hargoneth Executioners as well has dropped not a lot of health, but a little bit, and every little bit counts. If you can get it done early on, you can get rid of a unit before lines close or just as soon as lines close, and that means more free units for you to use afterwards. So take a look at this rock as well. Comes in and again does a great deal of work to that Hargoneth Executioner unit. While over here we have the Witch Elves diving into the Minotaurs with great weapons, inflicting them with the Madness of Cain, and so now they're rampaging out of control and they're forced into this engagement against the Dread Spears and the Cold One Knights. So those Minotaurs now very quickly falling apart. Again, wonderful use of Witch Elves. We saw it in the last battle. We're seeing it again here. So greatly done there. Malekith now pushes in as well against the Cygor, hoping to shut down that Cygor once and for all, or at least keep it engaged in melee so it's not able to throw its rocks. Over here, the Senegor with their throwing axes, tossing some of those axes into the Hargoneth Executioners, but then ultimately deciding to charge in from multiple angles, hoping to break these guys, get them to leave the field as quickly as possible, while another rock comes in and tries to hit, I think, the Hargoneth Executioners, but just falling between them and the Dread Spears, while over here you'll see the Cygor now fully surrounded between the Cold One Knights, the Death Hag, and Malekith as well. That Cygor is not having a good time. The Witch Elves looking for another opportunity over here, and a bit of a mistake here from the Hargoneth Executioners. They are engaged one-to-one against these Bestigor herd. This unit of Hargoneth Executioners needs to come down over here, or needs to provide support against the Bestigor herd over here. But of course, the Beastmen have something to say about that as these two chariots come rolling through and try to terrify those guys, dropping their morale significantly. And over here as well, you'll see the Witch Elves in a tight spot, fighting against the Bestigor herd. They managed to get these Ungor Spearmen herd inflicted with the Madness of Cain, so they are going to be stuck in an engagement they might not like, but the Dread Spears and the Black Herd of Nagaron have much better places where they could be. Meanwhile, over here, the Beast Lord has been hit by Soul Stealer from Malekith, trying to maybe heal the little bit of damage that's been done, but I think more so just trying to do some damage to the Beast Lord. It was maybe also looking to do some hurt to the Brave Shaman of Wild, but perhaps a bit premature there. Could have waited until the Beast Lord or the target, wherever it might be, was in a better clump. On the topic of clumps, though, take a look at this rock coming in towards this massive Dark Elf clump over here, getting a great hit between two units of Hargoneth Executioners. These are very high-value targets there, being shut down from a distance by a Cygor that was summoned to the field. So wonderfully done by the Beastmen. You'll see here Malekith now chasing after the Brave Shaman of Wild, but again, apart from the chariot, that's not really going to do much because the magic has been used up, and the Cygor, though, continues to get a lot of work done. Take a look at this Bestigor herd, though, inflicted by the Madness of Cain, taking a lot of damage. In comes a charge from the chariot, though. The Brave Shaman of Wild manages to scare these Dread Spears off alongside that Senegor throwing axe support, and over here as well, the Cygor tossing more rocks, trying to get some damage into that clump, and the Dark Elves have basically lost that engagement. And take a look at the situation from all the way up here for a second. This Cygor has taken a lot of hurt by virtue of it simply being summoned to the field. It has maybe a fifth of its health left, and take a look at this Cygor over here. It's lost maybe a quarter, bit more than a quarter of its health. Now, if the Dark Elves, instead of pushing down this way from the start of the battle, had pushed down this way, that would have changed everything. Well, it would have changed a lot. This Cygor has killed 117 Dark Elves. If the amount of damage that was pulled off over here on the right had been pulled off on the left instead, that would be one less Cygor on the field. Beyond that, if the Dark Elf army had actually split apart, and say a unit of Cold One Knights had gone after this Cygor, while some Blackguard of Nagaron or Dread Spears went after this one, there would be very little range support coming in. The morale damage and physical damage as well to health from two Cygor on the field would have been completely removed if the Dark Elves had just split ever so slightly, sent one unit separately on its way to shut down the artillery. But unfortunately, that is not the case, and so both Cygor have done a lot of work. You'll look at this situation over here as well, as Malekith tries to take care of the Brave Shaman of Wild, but in comes the Beast Lord, in come the Ungor Spearman herd as well. We've got the Cold One Knights diving in to try and provide some support, but of course they're rampaging as well. They've lost control, so they're not fully under control of the player as well. Jonton is not in full control of his army, and over here you'll see we have the Bestigor herd now being mowed down by the Death Hag. So good use of the Death Hag there, getting about 55 kills. Needs to be ping-ponging a lot more, needs to be moving around a lot more, because you'll see right now we've got massive shatters going down for the Dark Elves. They're not willing to stick around anymore, and again the Cygor just tossing rocks and getting a fair bit of damage off in the distance here as well. This Cygor, 117 kills, trying to get one more good shot with the rock over there before he ultimately falls apart and dies. And in the center you can see again the Dark Elves continue to shatter here and there. The Beast Lord though in a bit of a tight spot, as Malekith will overpower him, but take a look at that massive clump of units of all ilk just diving in on Malekith, hoping to hurt him and scare him, while off in the distance here that Cygor has finally fallen after killing perhaps just over 117 individuals. The Cygor on the right though, of course, still very much alive, hasn't been taken care of, still over half health, so unfortunately the Dark Elves just not able to shut down that threat. And the Brave Shaman of Wild now again trying to get some rear charges, moving around, looking for places where he can drive through with his chariot, deciding the Blackguard of Nagorond are an ideal target, and look at that, just devastating these guys' morale, not doing too much physical damage, but reducing their morale significantly, and trying to provide support to a lowly Ungor Spearman herd unit. Now the Cygor over here as well, pushing in to maybe get involved in melee, because a lot of its shots are probably obstructed, but take a look at this as well, the Razorgore chariot, the Bestigor herd, all inflicted by the madness of Cain. If those Witch Elves had been better used, chasing after some of these chariots, keeping those guys inflicted with the madness of Cain, or hitting both Cygor, again, just tactically removing the capabilities that the Beastmen have brought to the field. In the center here, though, once again, we have Soul Stealer going down on a massive clump, trying to keep Malekith alive, and you'll see these guys are forced to pull back into some safety, and Malekith as well turns around and tries to get away from all those axes as they come flying through, and he decides to provide some support over here against the Bestigor herd. You'll see we have these Razorgore herd chariot still rampaging, just trying to stay engaged with the Dread Spears over here, which is of course not an ideal situation for it, while the Cygor as well now pushing into melee as predicted, maybe chasing after the Death Hag, chasing after Malekith, trying to do damage wherever possible, because again, there's not a lot of anti-large from the Dark Elves on the field anymore. The Blackguard of Nagorond over here basically taking care of that. Brave Shaman of Wild coming in for one last charge, hoping to finish those guys off once and for all, riding them down completely, while the Dread Spears over here, again, very low on morale, barely able to stick around and fight these Dread Spears as well, pushing in to try and take care of the Cygor. And you'll see again the Cygor now at half health already, so if you engage the Cygor with anti-large, it will start to fall apart. Unfortunately, that was just not done for long enough in this battle, and even as the Brave Shaman of the Wild here comes charging through, you can see the Dark Elves are already shattering. Malekith willing to give up on the fight here, as the Senegor with their throwing axes continue to toss axes, and the Cygor beats Malekith on the path to a Pyrrhic victory. It's always nice, in my opinion, to see players adapt to a situation, whether it ends up working out or not. Unfortunately, this time it did not, though the Dark Elves did a lot better this time around compared to the first. It's unfortunate that despite the clever adjustments to the army, there were some management issues that tore things apart really, and despite some great micromanagement at the start, it may have just been the pressure of two distant melee-capable artillery pieces constantly tossing rocks that broke the Dark Elves at the end of the day. As always, make sure you subscribe to this channel for more Total War content, and keep sending in those battle replays, wins and losses both. They're always great viewing experiences. I do think it's one of the best ways to learn, and it's great to highlight battles from the community. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you on the battlefield.